side and the investor side are mutually exclusive. They're one and the same, but I think let's talk about the deals that have equity, um, and kind of break it down in terms of finding those deals, and then what do you say to those types of people. Um, so in this current market, just wanted to be clear here. In this current market, what we have is less than a month of inventory. If you kind of look at everything, it may be even less than 2 weeks of inventory in a hot price point. Most common, biggest buyer demand group, anything under probably 375, maybe even 400 in this county. Um, that buyer demand is still hot. We're getting a lot of offers on properties. And what that tends to do is we're seeing a lot of properties that should be wholesale quality or lower retail flip investor grade quality listed at about 20% more than where they should be. And it leaves no profit for any type of rehab investor. And what I call those are kamikaze deals. That's what me and my buddy call them. You buy them as an investor, think you have margin, you rehab the property, and then you go to sell it and it doesn't appraise because the buyers can't get a loan on it and it's not a cash buy. And those types of deals is what we're seeing everywhere. We're seeing it across the town. It's not to say you can't find flip inventory, but if it's on the market, it's overpriced. And so backing up, so how do you find properties that are not overpriced? And I think that comes back to having eyes on the street and being able to either door knock, and door knocking is kind of out of the equation with COVID. So you have to go into like more of a virtual door knock, cold calling type of perspective. And just want to preface everybody, this is not the most attractive part of marketing, but as an investor, if you're not doing any outbound calling, like you're pretty much guaranteeing yourself at least 75% less deals, like right off the bat. Even one of the biggest wholesalers that I know, they're making 100 dials a day minimum. And that doesn't have to be 100 dials in Eugene or Springfield specifically, but that's 100 dials a day consistently, 2,000 dials a month minimally. And so to find that type of property, we typically drive for dollars. We go find properties that we think are distressed. We look for indicators. Those indicators could be a long list of things that we don't really have to go into. But once you create some sort of database, even if it's like 5 homes a week or 10 homes a month, whatever it is, we typically skip trace those people. And if you're not familiar with skip tracing, we will essentially look them up in PropStream. That's the software that we use. We'll pay for the skip tracing inside there, which is basically going to look for some sort of phone number, some sort of mailing address, connect the dots there. And then I take it and I skip it again. And I usually skip it. I can't give you the source that I have because you usually have to do skip tracing in large batches and download like a CSV file. But I use a lady in the Philippines, and she basically comes back with any cell phone numbers that she thinks the people are, their Facebook, their LinkedIn, any email addresses she thinks that they are, and also, as well as Instagram. She includes everything. And so that allows us to, there's been literally people that I've reached out on Facebook, but because their phone numbers weren't good. And hey, you own this duplex. I noticed it was vacant. Like, are you ever interested in selling? Yada, yada, yada. So what I'm trying to get at is that if you rely on Google PPC or AdWords for inbound leads in a hot market, they just won't come. In a buyer's market, they'll come all the time. When people are distressed, there's tons of notices of default. People are foreclosing. There's high stress everywhere. No buyers. But right now, when market's hot, we have a very sophisticated thing called the internet. and people have options, and they usually list with a real estate agent. So how do you strike up a conversation with somebody that might potentially be able to sell? And I wanted to give you guys this advice, is that as real estate investors, not realtors, you have to treat your investment business like a realtor when it's in this current type of market. You have to prospect. You need to form relationships with people. You need to figure out where they are. If there's anything that you could solve in terms of being an investor, are they looking to rent, or is their mortgage too high? Do they need to refinance? Any of that information that you can pass along or provide value to them. That's why the real estate investment game turns into relationship building. And then when the market does start to slow down and it starts to shift to a neutral market or a buyer's market, you have like this list of 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 people in town that essentially you've had a conversation with that may turn into a sale, a listing, whatever it is. So I wanted to tell everybody that, like, with our current business model, the number one problem I see with investments acquisition is that they hire somebody to make the calls for them, or they try to outsource it, and they don't extract the right information. It's not a memorable conversation. You don't build a relationship with the person. So they pretty much just like, oh yeah, you're a telemarketer trying to get my email address and you ask me if I want to sell. And it's not actually the owner of the business. So if you're really serious about investing in this market and you can't find something online that on the MLS that makes sense, you got to go find it. And that could be through prospecting and scripts. And I just wanted to share the script that I use a lot in our business. And typically when I call somebody, I ask them, hey, is this John or Steve or whoever I skip traced? And I'm like, hey, is this John? And they're like, yeah, why are you calling me? Who is this? And I'll be like, hey, this is Dan. I'm an investor as well as a realtor, just full disclosure. But I just wanted to be real quick here. How I reached out because I'm looking to purchase a property in your neighborhood and put it into my rental portfolio. And I just noticed that there was some deferred maintenance at this house. So, I just want to be real quick here. Are you living in that house, or is that a rental property? And I always ask that if I'm calling as an investor, not as a real estate agent. And I always ask that because a lot of times what you'll find out is the people actually do live there and they're just lazy, or they have money problems, or they're not like taking care of the property. And people will be like, no, I live here. What are you trying to say? And I always try to say that, like, hey, I'm looking for property that has deferred maintenance. Let me just be honest. You need a new roof. Like, I noticed the windows were like from 1970, like whatever I can do, if and when you're ever ready to sell that, I'd love to have the opportunity to just keep in touch with you. And I always use that type of script for most of the residential single family, because a lot of times what you will find out is people are renting the property and it's their tenants who are not taking care of the property. And they also may, even if I skip trace this, a lot of times they're out of state and they'll be like, oh yeah, man, like it needs a new roof. Like, I'm kind of done being a landlord. And what you'll get is a conversation with somebody because you physically had eyes on the property. You have a picture of that property. You know what it looks like, not just from Google Earth or Google Street. And I can't stress that enough. Like, I have a lot of friends that'll do digital driving for dollars, which is basically just opening up Google Drive or Google Maps and like finding properties that look like they could potentially be, investment grade quality. But physically going out, knowing this, walking the streets or knowing the streets, taking a picture of the house you want to contact, finding the information, and then asking those people like, hey, I just noticed there's deferred maintenance. Like, is there an issue here? And I buy most of my properties. I do not buy brand new or in turnkey quality. So if you're interested in doing something, definitely be interested in just keeping in touch. I get their email address, then I drop an email newsletter to them. So that type of prospecting is the best from the investor side, because eventually you'll start to fill in your little Tetris sheet on your Excel spreadsheet with all the email addresses you didn't have. You know where they live. You know you can reach out to them quarterly, biannually, whatever it is. But the biggest difference here is it's me calling. It's not some like eighth or high school kid or college kid. It's me calling. Hi, I'm the owner of the company. And we've had a lot of good conversations just in the brief time we started prospecting. And I think that is the key in this type of buyer climate. That's the key of finding properties, because your Google AdWords and your PPC not going to be generating a lot of inbound leads. I know this for a fact because I know a lot of us have Carrot sites. I just talked to Carrot last week. They're like, oh, the Google algorithm changed. And like, unless you're spending like $300 or $400, $500 a month, you know, you got to do tons of backlinks. I'm like, dude, no investor has time for this stuff. Like, they just don't have time to content stack and do all this back end SEO work. So where are you getting deals? Oh, we're calling. I'm literally going to tell you this, guys. I talked to the VP of growth at Carrot, and he told me his number one lead source is calling people. He works for the website company that's supposed to be generating leads.
All right, I have a question.
Yes.
So as of January 1st, the no call list thing or whatever is changing. Something is going on. You might know about this, I'm guessing. And on the new platform I'm on does ringless voicemail. So tell me if you're considering any of those changes that are coming up and what you know about it. Carrot doesn't seem to know anything about it. My Oregon RIA website doesn't seem to know anything about it. So I'm just wondering.
I haven't heard anything about it. I know that they're cracking down on text.
Oh, okay.
I think that's, what have you heard? Just because this is a good topic of conversation.
Yeah, so my new site that I'm signing up with is called REI Black Book, and they do you could do ringless voicemail through it, and you know you just get a new phone number through them, you get your website through them, and it's all simple, and but you know it's just like rebuilding your whole website again, and as of January 1st, because I run the Oregon RIA site, it says I can no longer send out text messages, and you're right, it was text messages to my membership, who the membership has. They're the ones that put the phone number in, not me. I didn't go out there and get it through whatever, so they should be like, you know, fine with it. And but as of January 1st, I won't be able to, you know, mass text people, and I need to get with the owner and leader of this site. So, but I've never had that capability on Carrot that I know of. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and that's been a lot of the reason why we've all migrated or thinking of migrating or in the process of migrating, right? Is that if this, like, let's back up, everybody. If this market was like heavy foreclosure market, tons of jobs leaving, people desperate, things are happening, like there's a lot of shifting and uncertainty. COVID didn't happen. There's not a lot of people with cash moving here to work remotely and enjoy the West Coast. If you take all those variables and erase them, right? Online and having good SEO and good PPC is great. And it'll generate you 3 to 5 calls a week, maybe 20 leads a month, maybe 30 leads a month if it's a really hot month. But now, as the FCC and everyone is cracking down, like, unless somebody opts in for a text message and you don't send the text that's like, hey, do you want to receive this, or press stop, you can basically be fined per instance.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like almost better to scrub against the DNC and just call and then have a conversation with them. And if they don't want to answer, or they're like, hey, you're spamming me, or I'm on the DNC list, like, hey, sorry about that, I'll take you off my list. Hope you have a great day.
You know, I'm just sidelining here because I also checked to see if I was on the DNC list, my phone number. And it turned out I had applied for that in 2009. I'm on the DNC, and there's this, check to see if you're on the DNC list. I get a lot of phony phone calls all day long. So, so the opt-in thing is just like, how can you get people to say they opted in on the texting? That would be interesting.
We just kind of have a golden rule here that we don't text anybody unless they're like a friend, family, or sphere of influence, like they know me, or we're doing a deal with them. Like not even in lead stage. Like if they're in lead stage, I would rather spam them on Facebook and be like, hey, like I reached out to you via phone call. I didn't hear back. Like I noticed you were interested in so-and-so property or whatever it is. But I think as soon as they eliminate the ability to prospect, all that's really left is direct mail and then like building a magnet of content and audience around you. And that takes a lot of money. And that's pretty much what my company does. So when a real estate agent really wants to start building market share, they start providing expertise. They overload the content out there on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and they start creating the audience around them in the local area because people want to stay tuned and be connected to those types of people because they're movers and shakers and they're interesting people to follow. I mean, it's the same reason why, like, hey, you may follow like Cornucopia Burgers or like a bar downtown or, an arcade in town or whatever, a golf course, whatever your interests are. Like you're going to follow those people who provide great content and they're in your wheelhouse. So if you're a doctor, attorney, dentist, and you're following a local investor and he's always talking about rental properties and investment properties and things you should, that's going to be able to provide that content. But with all of that, and not to go into the weeds here, that takes tons of time and tons of money. And it's such a long-term play that you can only do that once you have some of these systems set up and you're prospecting on average. Like right now with my current company, we were prospecting 20 hours a week to generate like 5 deals a month. So it was like a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ROI. But then when we started to add LinkedIn and started sending out Loom videos, when we started adding Instagram and sending out Loom videos and getting proactive and answering questions and finding the right prospects, like that's when, we closed 10 deals in 1 week. So I think you just have to be really creative on mapping it all out. And that's really what I wanted to talk about tonight is like, a lot of people know they need to call people. They know that there needs to be a system behind it, but they don't sit down and they say, I'm going to create a 1-page document that like, what is the system from start to finish? Like every marketing activity that you do in your business that you either invest time in or money into has to have like a one sheet of like, let me brainstorm this first. Mm-hmm. Where am I getting the data? Then what am I going to do with it? Then what am I going to say to these people? And then if they say yes or say no, where do they go from there? When do I follow up if they did say yes? What happens if they said yes right now? And like, what happens if they said no or take me off the list? Where does that go?
It's the new version of the flow chart.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that's what we've been really working on is creating those workflows for every marketing lead source. And if you had one and you wanted to work off referrals, it would be like transaction closed, asked for a testimonial or written review, followed up and said thank you, then asked them if they knew anybody that was buying or selling or anybody they could send that testimonial to that could potentially be a referral. But that workflow is too short when it comes to referrals because you're waiting on somebody else to engage that conversation about you and be able to create that process. My real estate coach, when I first started in this business, being a director of operations, like I had to vet the coach, figure out the system was good. Then if the system was good, then implement it into the business. We asked for referrals 4 times in a real estate transaction. Not at the end when everything's great or everything's just destroyed and everyone hates each other. We would literally ask for referrals throughout the transaction. Like, hey, just FYI, like I'm looking to, kick up another deal here. If you know anybody, yada, yada, yada. So what I'm trying to get at, guys, is that I learned really quick that referrals aren't a marketing strategy. And then I read books. I wish I had this book. I have a book of 400 real estate agents who, one of the questions, they interviewed 400 real estate agents and they asked them, what's your favorite marketing strategy? And about 20% of them or 30% of them said, my favorite marketing strategy is working referrals, or like getting past clients to give me referrals. And like the guy just straight up like denies him every time. He's like, that's not a marketing strategy. Marketing strategy is getting people to understand what you can do to help them, educate them, provide them content, provide them expertise, show them a return on investment analysis, show them you're an expert, get them energized and get them amped up to work with you. And a referral is simply somebody handing you a sale or handing you a lead. So in all of that, what I try to tell everybody is your past client or even your investment deals. Like I think we talked about this last week, is that your investment deals can be great referral sources, right? You may have other people that could be interested in buying, selling, whatever it is, or have another investor that has investment properties that wants to sell. But creating that flow chart for every marketing lead source and not being afraid of the phone is, I think, in 2021, the best thing you can possibly do. If somebody comes into my business and says, what's your number one marketing strategy? I'd say cold call, prospecting, building relationships. Second is building referral relationships from cold calling and addressing different action items that we can help. So found a probate attorney, had a great conversation with them, threw him a couple clients. Now he's feeding us deals, like literally like 1 or 2 every couple months. So that was a marketing strategy because it's a referral, but we went out, we created a strategy around finding the right person that could give us the right type of clientele and right type of leads. And the third most important marketing strategy that we currently, like we still do some direct mail and we still will always do direct mail, but I slowed down on direct mail when I realized really quick that a lot of the real estate transactions that we were really kicking off were Ed, my partner, started doing a lot of ringless voicemail, RVMs. We call people, they would never answer, right? So we would just hit them with a ringless voicemail, and then like, boom, people started calling us back, either to say they hated us or to say that, it is something they're interested in doing. So what I wanted to really talk about in all of this is that unless you're going to wholesale houses and wholesaling is your business, you have to really run your real estate investment business. Even if you want to do 1 deal a year, almost like a real estate agent now, you have to go out, form relationships, talk about real estate, think about the things that you could provide them or solutions you can solve, and then turn around and be able to write them an off-market offer and do it. Because if you don't, the whole point I'm trying to get at is if you don't intercept that seller before they're going to sell, they're going to go sell on market with a real estate agent. That's what happens in this market. You have to intercept them. And that's what our coach has basically been praising for the last like 16 months as everything's been super hot. He's like, you got to intercept the deal before the seller takes it to market. It's the only way to pick up deals now. And he goes, look at the pre-foreclosure list. There's like 2 people on it, or maybe 0, because they like stopped all foreclosures. You can't find those people that are, upside down on their mortgages. Yeah, there's tax default, or there's sheriff sales and other, lead sources. But as a realtor and an investor, like, I understand that really clearly. Like, if I don't intercept that person, then somebody else is going to. And I think that relationship building is the key to how you position that. And to give you an example real quick is, we had a loan officer who's friends with us. He was like, hey, I live on this street and there's like a house with boarded up windows. And we were like, oh yeah, we saw that. It's been in foreclosure for like 300 days, yada, yada, yada. He's like, cool. So we tried to reach out to the attorney. That went nowhere. They didn't get back to us. Then we tried to skip trace the owners. They're both passed away. Then we were like trying to figure out who their next of kin was. We finally found out who like the son or daughter was. Skip traced them. We're like $10, $15 into like a lead that we know may go nowhere. Finally reached out to the son, and I'm like, hey, like, there's a boarded up house. I know your parents used to own it. My buddy that's a lender told me he lives right down the street from you. Like, the neighborhood is like not happy about this because they're like, we're at a hot top of the end market and your house is like dragging everyone else's real estate market down. Would you guys ever consider selling this? And the guy was like, simply straight up was like, no, I'm not interested. Like, I'm in a fight right now with my sister and we're trying to figure this out. And it's been going on for like a year. And there's a bunch of back taxes that are owed. And I was like, cool. Well, can I call you in 6 months once you're done fighting with your sister? Like, I tried to say it really funny. And the guy was like, yeah, just follow up with me in 6 months. I waited 6 months. It was on my calendar. Follow up with people who were fighting, blah, blah, blah. I had a funny note. Called him back. He's like, yeah, my sister's going to end up buying me out. My sister's going to end up buying me out. And then I think she's going to be wanting to sell it. And I was like, cool. When's that all happening? Well, it's going to probate right now. So once the judge agrees to our plans, then I think we'll be able to have something figured out. And I was like, cool. Well, before she goes to sell that on the market, like, call me. When should I follow up with you? He's like, I don't know. It should be done in like the next 90 days. Call him 90 days later. Still not done. I've been nurturing this deal for like a year and 2 months. All the way through. The reason? It's a house that can be fully remodeled. And I think he wants like $57,000 for it. And it's probably worth like $250,000. So that all came from relationships and calling and always following up, putting them in the CRM and working that whole game. It's not rocket science. That's nothing here that I've said is rocket science. But the difference is that most investors, most wholesalers would have had that very first conversation and they would have been like, you're not looking to sell this right now? Cool. Hang up, delete. Not interested. Because it's not instant gratification. It's not instant profit. And I think that's the biggest life lesson to the sales. Sales and marketing are 2 different systems. And I think what everyone needs to really understand is that follow-up, my old broker used to say, close over 125 million a year. Say the deal, 80% of these deals is done in the follow-up. Like touch 5, 6, 7 next year, next 2 years from now, 10 plus touches, as Grace just alluded to. And he goes, I'll just be clear here, like 95, 97% of people just don't go that far. They don't have those relationships. And that's why they are running their business on the 3% of people that need their services right now. So it doesn't matter. Like, you can apply this. I know some of us want to do investment properties. Some of us want to sell real estate. Some of us may own other types of companies. And I really try to tell everybody that creating that system and having a solid CRM, like the last little part of this whole call is you have to have a CRM, and you have to be able to set and put the time and effort in to write down the notes after every single phone call. That, like, if you looked at my CRM on the technology side, when salespeople come in and I hire them, and then I'll flip them leads, like, hey, call this person. Hey, like, this person's like somebody I used to talk to, like, pretty much like try to revive some of these leads. They'll read all the way through all my notes and they'll be like, hey man, you like put the best dispositions I've ever seen. Like, you have like who they are, if they're interested, what they're looking to do, when to follow up, all the information's in there. And I always say I'm doing all this work and I'm not sidetracking myself or jumping to the next thing, because that has essentially allowed my company, like, in the last like 3 or 4 weeks, I've closed like 5 or 6 deals that were people that just like reached out of the blue and they're like, hey man, you like emailed me 2 months ago and like I'd like to get started now. And those types of deals would have never came from not following up and nurturing. So if you don't have a CRM, even if you're just a part-time investor or an investor that wants to get started, buy one and put all your friends and family in there. Put everybody, every contact in your phone in there, sort them, tag them, and then you can apply your business to it. And then the rocket science behind all of this, and what is something that people don't put into action, is then you can take that data, you can run direct mail to them and send them all Christmas cards. Then you can go back through them and send them an RVM and saying, hey, I just wanted to reconnect. Like, I just wanted to make sure this is your number. Shoot me a text. Let's get in touch. Whatever it is. And create that automation in your business, because what we're dealing with right now is that if this market stays hot for another year, there's going to be more and more house flippers in this town that are not going to be house flippers anymore. They're not going to have inventory to flip. There's just no inventory to flip here unless you're physically intercepting those deals, talking to people, and getting them to sell you investment grade real estate. And that's what I want to say is really different than most markets. Last thing, I saw a house in Roseburg that was on 12 acres, straight up investment grade. It had a view of the mountains. Its backyard was beautiful. It was like a view of the mountains. Had a barn, 11 acres. They wanted 267 for this. It was literally on the market, I think, like 5 hours. It was pending. So if you're not super quick with getting investment grade real estate and being able to do what you need to do in order to do it, there's no way to intercept these deals. And that was the last property I've seen in Roseburg that was a flip. And that went pending like 5 weeks ago. So I don't know, unless you're really cooking those types of deals up from, alternative marketing strategies, or your carrot sites pumping in leads, like, you got to go out and find those deals. That's the only way to do it. And as a first time investor, if you're just trying to get into buying a duplex here, or a rental property that's around the university that you could rent out per room, like, you got to go hunt for those deals. You got to do the investigation work. And the reason I say that is that I know that's what other investors are doing here. And that's the marketing aha moment of tonight, is that if you rely on the MLS to go find investment deals, you better have really deep pockets and play the appreciation game for the next 10, 15 years. That's every property that is sold on the MLS right now as investment grade real estate is either way overpriced or is a property you're going to just plop in your portfolio of the other 30 properties you have, because you have so much money, you don't care about overpaying. And you can wait until that property grows and grows and grows. So
if I can interrupt here, I just think that the most important thing in my experience that you talked about was the follow-up is where the money is. The follow-up is where the money is, and the many touches. And like I was saying in the very beginning, I was saying to Stacy about this house is now up listed, that I called once and now it's listed, and I probably discovered it 6 months ago. And and it's definitely a flipper house. And I many times have lost out opportunities by not following up. So having a CRM, like you're talking about, in which you have a schedule of follow-up, is key. And I texted or chatted to Mike Grunzian, who's been in sales and marketing for his whole life. I was like, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I was going to say everything. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything Dan was saying, it sounds like sales. And one of the biggest things, I have to put an exclamation after your point: follow up. But that's in anything. That's in business. I don't know how many people complain about vendors that, like, hey, I called for a guy to come over, fix something, and you never hear from him or whatever. Follow up. And I back in the old days of little index cards, I had my notes. That was my CRM. And I had a little stack. I tracked a sale for 19 months until I finally got them down to the ground. It was the biggest commission of my life. But it's literally diligence in the notes. And you don't have to even write whole sentences, but the things that you'll remember, but you put down, hey, he just mentioned something about his sister. Okay, so, sister's important, this. Yep. Every little side comment, something like that, because you're building like this profile, like you get to know this person. And you can always look back and then sometimes things come up like, oh, well, you told me 6 months ago that such and such, so it must be time for that. I mean, there's just take good notes, do follow up.
Yep.
And it helps having relationships. I'm thinking to myself, hearing what you were saying, I have a contact database of like 2,000 people. I mean, there's so many people I know. And I was just thinking, I might just call everybody I know. Hi, you're one of my contacts. Remember 10 years ago we did this and this. I'm looking for this, and just tell everybody personally through a relationship, I'm looking for a 3-2.
Yep. No,
I love it. That's awesome.
Mike's spot on with that, and we usually call that the yearly run through, where we would run through like everybody, even friends and family, like just call everybody, tell them what you're looking for, ask them how their kids are doing, whatever it is, right? Have a meaningful conversation with it. The people that are like, bad number, cool. Jump on Facebook, hit them up with a message. Hey, I tried to give you a call just to catch up. Is this still your number? ? And fill in those gaps. So it's amazing, because at the end of the day, like I said, tonight's lesson is not sexy. There's not a lot of stuff but I wanted to cover the core of this, is that prospecting, relationship building can lead to some of the biggest and best deals. Like my 9-unit apartment complex is based upon a postcard that went out, a conversation that was said, no, I would never sell my duplexes or any of my other properties. And now we're selling all of her properties and buying them. So the story changed in an elongated way of what I'm saying, is that it was no, maybe I'll consider it. Okay. How do we get this done? And that's what we need to really talk about. But next time we meet, I wanted to all talk to you guys about what's happening with SEO and PPC in the internet right now. And I think everyone just kind of needs to know that Google changed their algorithm. And so if you do have a Google, it doesn't matter what business you have. If you have a Google My Business listing, get reviews. Like, even if it's your aunt, uncle, brother, sister, Terry, Timmy, doesn't matter. Get as many reviews as you can get onto Google, because there's going to be a big shift here in the new year. And if your content is found on any other websites, then immediately it's going to be flagged as duplicate content and your page rank is going to go down. So you pretty much have to write original content for your website for it to come up.
Thank you, Dan. I'm looking forward to that reviews.
Yep.
Hey, will you all review mine? I'll review yours.
Yeah. I'm serious, right?
Let's do it, right?
That's a good idea.
I think it's the
Yeah.
best, right? Just make up a,
Send each other websites to review on, and here I'm sending it out now.
yeah. Yeah, it's that's a big part of the whole all the position.
Everybody put it out there, and then I'll copy them down and send them out. Yeah,
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah,
And-
thank you guys.
in the chat.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Dan. That
We
was
got like
awesome.
2 minutes left. Do it. That was
Thank you,
awesome.
Dan. That
Yeah.
was great.
Oh, thank you, Justin. I want to see you again.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Sorry, I just
Review. Get some positive reviews, not bad reviews.
True story.
There we go. West
I
Coast.
hate Grace. Do not buy a home from her.
She lies like a son of a witch.
Yeah.
We
no,
could always start it out with this one time.
no, it's totally cool.
I don't normally write reviews, but
Right.
Exactly. No, it's I appreciate you guys coming in. I think if you instill that in your business for 2021, like, hey, I just set the goal. 1 hour a week, I'm going to go through all my past clients, all my contacts, all my sphere of influence, anybody that's in my phone or in my CRM, and let me just flush through this. And if you come across somebody you're like, wait, this isn't going to be a good conversation, delete them. Don't keep them in your CRM if it's not going to turn into a conversation.
I have thousands in mine. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Oh,
Same here.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Okay. Nobody else putting anything. No websites are
Thank
coming
you.
out here. Come on, Brad. Come on, Stacy.
yeah,
Let's get on here, and I'll send it out to each of you.
Pleasure.
Mine's a linked website. I don't think you can do reviews on it. So
We sent the reviews on the pink-haired lady.
yeah, I'll have
Pink-haired
to
real estate.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Oh, okay, so it's just 2 of us. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
right.
Dan. It was awesome.
thanks guys. Have a good
Bye
night.
guys.
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Bye.